A very interesting Gemara that we had yesterday. I think we started at 48a1. We're towards the bottom, right bottom of the page. Boy mine, um, do we do that Gemara? Are we up to? My question is, are we up to Rav Chizda? Okay, maybe we'll just run through that Gemara again. Boy mine Rav Ada, Boy mine Rav Ada Bamatna me'Abaya. Rav Ada Bamatna asked Abaya the following question: Muchen shetama behem. Right, we see this muchen. This is like cotton, it's soft material. How did it, you have it? Right, it's soft material that what you do from it, you manufacture it, you make it into felt, right? You process it. So now it's before the processing stage, and you used it as an insulator before Shabbat. You insulated the food with it. You insulated the pot with it. Now, can I move it? Does that now in general, since you're going to use it for felt, so it doesn't have any use on Shabbat. Since it doesn't have any use on Shabbat, so it should be this material would be mukseh, right? This felt material, this garment is mukseh on Shabbat. This is not the garment, the material, right? The cotton that you're going to process. You didn't process yet. So now I went ahead and I used it for insulating. So now the fact that now it's used as an insulator one time, does that make it now it's no longer muksa? Has they that well, the one time designation from one in Bokato is not good enough. That's the question. So muchen shetamem mal l'tatal b'Shabbat. Does it lose its status? The fact that I used it once, it's no longer muksa or not? Because why did you use the felt? Why did you use this cotton to insulate? Because I didn't have straw. So the fact that I didn't have straw doesn't mean I'm gonna leave it there as instead of straw, because it's an expensive material. Expensive material. I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna eventually use it as the felt. If I went ahead and I designated it, I said I want to designate, or I had in mind to designate it forever, okay, then it became an insulator. But generally, the fact that it's generally when you have you use this as instead of, because I didn't have the straw. I'm not going to leave it. Not going to use this material regularly for it. I'm going to take it back to use it as the value has much more value to use it as felt, make a nice thing out of it than just use it what straw is used for. Because I don't have a box of straw, a basket of straw. I'm going to go ahead and give away my box of uh, of cotton. I'm going to take the cotton back, and therefore it's not really standing for insulating, and therefore it would be mukseh. It would retain its status of mukseh, and therefore if I wanna, I would not be able to handle this cotton directly that I used to insulate the pot. I would shake it off. I pick up the cover of the pot, let's say, and some way shake it off or something, but not to handle it directly. Blame Messiah. The Gemara says, let's bring a proof. Is everything clear? Everything clear? What we just said. We just said that if you have a material that's generally not used for Shabbat purposes, you plan on manufacturing it. You're going to manufacture that material. If you're going to make it into a garment, so you don't plan to. Doesn't have Shabbat use. Therefore, you're like separated from it, right? So if you separated from it, let's say, what would you think about raw materials, raw cloths, or raw wool? You have no use for it on Shabbat. What do you do with wool on Shabbat? You plan on, let's say you're gonna clean the wool, comb the wool, whatever it is, it has no use. It's separated from you. Just like what is a rock in the street? It has no use. Also, I think it could be. I think I saw that they might call this muksa machmat chasar kiss. because of its value, you're afraid to use it for other type of purposes generally, because it might get ruined. So therefore, you're separated from it's standing to be for manufacturing purposes, and I don't want to use it for I don't want to use it for other things generally because I'm afraid it's going to ruin its position, like a knife of a mohel, right, or a knife of a slaughterer. Are you gonna use the knife of a slaughterer to cut your apple? No. To cut my apple with the knife of a slaughterer, listen, before Shabbat, slaughtering is a forbidden act. It's standing to use a knife to slaughter. So the knife is muktzah. Now I'm going to say, can I use the knife to? So you're going to say, Rabbi, but it's a kli it's a utensil that's used for forbidden purposes, like a hammer. But I could take a hammer to cut a walnut. So maybe I should be able to take the knife of the slaughterer to cut my apple. But we say no. Why this is different? Because it's a higher level muktzah. It's not just it's used for forbidden purposes. It's a utensil used for forbidden purposes that if I'm separated from it, because I don't slaughter on Shabbat, but it has a different issue. I'm afraid to handle that knife. I'm afraid to handle the knife of a slaughterer. Because why? Because if I handle it for other purposes than slaughtering, it might get what? Ruined. Because there's a knife of a slaughterer, right, Ezra? Needs a very clear, a very smooth blade. Got to work hard, no nicks, and you have to make sure it's very smooth. I wouldn't use it for an apple. I would ruin it. And therefore, that makes me more separated. A hammer, I don't care using it for a walnut. I'm not ruining that. There's no concern of loss for the hammer. But that's a new level of mukseh, by the way. Mukseh, it's separated from me because I'm afraid of loss. That's gonna. I don't use it for others. I'm afraid it's something that's gonna. It's tender. It's sensitive. And if I use it for other purposes, it can ruin it. Therefore, that's gonna separate me from the use of this item that's standing to be used in a prohibited fashion, like slaughtering. I'm separated from using it for anything else, and therefore that would be the mukseh. So this felt, this material, this cotton is something that's going to be used to make felt. This cotton is separated from me because I'm afraid it should get ruined. Good morning, Boker Tov. So therefore, it remains separated from me, even though the fact that I used it, I was stuck. I used it as an insulator, but it still retains its original status that it's generally not used for other things, and therefore it is considered still mukseh. Lema Messiah. So the Gemara says, now we're turning the page, 4882. Lema Messiah. Let's bring a proof to this point. Tomnin begizei tsemer. You could go ahead and you could insulate before Shabbat with the shearings of wool, right? You sheared wool, it's as is. You just sheared it off, fresh off the sheep, right? The sipit tsemer. Sipit tsemer is like wool that, let's say, that was beaten and that's like spread out, like a mat of mat of combed wool, okay? Or you have a wool that's dyed, right? Let's say you dyed it purple, right? You dyed it a certain purple wool. You go ahead and you could insulate before Shabbat. Let's say that they're like long. It's like a long, long. They call it like a tongue, tongues of strips of purple wool. And you can also insulate before Shabbat with the cotton. Now, we're saying because these items do not add heat. They do not add heat, so therefore they're allowed to be used as a what? As an insulator before Shabbat. But you can't move them. So even though they could be used as an insulator, but once Shabbat comes, you can't move them directly. You can move it maybe indirectly, use your elbow to move them, or however, but you cannot move them directly. They are mukseh. So we see, even though you used it used it the Shabbat as an insulator, but it still retains its status as a muksa item because it's not standing for insulating purposes. You didn't designate it specifically. The fact you used it once and this has a much greater use as a material to make it into a garment. An insulating material, you can use straw for insulating material. Therefore, we don't look at it that you're going to leave it there, use it as an insulator. Now it's designated as an insulator that would not be mukseh. Rather, it retains the status of mukseh. So that's a proof to Abaye. So the Gemara says, Imi Shemha. Is that clear, everybody? Imi Shemha, that's lo ira. That's not a proof. Why? Because you would be able to read this brighter another way. You could read the following. Im lo taman behem, if you did not, these materials, namely the cotton, the shearings of wool, if you did not use them as an insulator at all, never use it as an insulator, and now come Shabbat, can I move this wool? No. Can I move the cotton? No. It's standing for what purpose? It's standing for the purpose of being used as a felt to make a garment from it, right? It's used to make a garment from it. It's not standing to be an insulator. It's only standing for its original use. And therefore, when Shabbat comes, I am mukseh. Mukseh means separated. It's separated from me. I don't plan on using this raw material on Shabbat for anything. I plan on using it and combing it and spinning it or whatever and using it and manufacturing it. And I can't do that on Shabbat. Therefore, I'm separated from this, just like I'm separated from my money on Shabbat, my $10 that I have on the table, wherever. I'm separated from it. I have no use from it on Shabbat. So I'm separated from this material if I didn't use it to insulate anything. However, but if I use it as an insulator, maybe, even if I use it once, maybe it would not be mukseh. Maybe the bright is just saying that I could use these items as an insulator before Shabbat, and maybe once I use it as an insulator, even one time, maybe it's no longer mukseh. Maybe it doesn't have the status of mukseh anymore, because once I use it once, maybe we could consider it like it's an insulator and it's not mukseh. But when it says you can't move it, it means if I did not use it as an insulator, then I can't move it. If I didn't use insulator, then I can't move it. If it's talking about when I did not use it as an insulator, so what is the chidush? What is the novelty that they can't be moved if I take raw shearings of wool or raw cotton? Isn't it obvious it's not standing for my use on Shabbat? Because it's only if I have a little bag of cotton. What am I going to do with the bag of cotton? I'm going to make a felt out of it. I'm going to make a garment. I can't do that on Shabbat. So therefore, I'm separated from Shabbat. So what's the chidush? What's the bright telling me I can't move it? If you learn that it's talking about I used it, I actually the brighter means I use it as a insulator before Shabbat, and the novelty is that even though I was allowed to insulate it before Shabbat, but once Shabbat comes, the material still retains the status of mukseh. That's a chidush. Even though I used it, I had a right to use it before Shabbat. I had a right to insulate with it. You might have said once I insulated with it before Shabbat, now the Shabbat comes, maybe it should be not mukseh. I'm not separated from this type of material. You might have thought that. The novelty is it still retains the status of mukseh. It's still separated from me. Even though I used it in a permitted fashion by insulating in a permitted fashion, I insulated before Shabbat, it still retains its original, it's intended general, it's earmarked to be what? To be manufactured. So it retains the status of separated from me. But if you're saying that the brighter when it says you can't move it is only when I never used it for an insulator, just by itself, of course it's mukseh. So what would be the novelty? Everybody knows a shearing of wool that you just got off the sheep, it's not standing for use. Or if I didn't use it if as is, or cotton, and when it's mukseh. The Gemara says, the Chidush is like this. Mao the Tema, you might have thought Chazila Mizgalayum. This cotton, this felt, it's fit to use as to lean on it. To lean on it means to what? To make like a cushion, a nice little cushion. So if you have cotton in a bag. You have shearings of wool in a bag. Soft material. So you might have thought that maybe it's not mukseh because it has that use. You might have thought, and therefore maybe it's not mukseh. I'm not separated from it. In the time of the Gemara and the Mishnah, they would sit on the ground. Adam, you talk about the old days. A couple of thousand years ago, it was very common. They sat on the ground. I mean, we know we have all the Persian carpets, right? I wonder if that's because they sit on the ground. I don't know. What did they do in Persia? Were they historically sitting on the ground? I don't know. But they would sit in the time of the Mishnah, the Gemara, they sat on the ground. Isn't that where the carpet industry should have a good I don't know.
They probably just sat on the rocks.
What I say?
They probably just sat on the rocks.
But maybe in your house, let's say in your house. Where did you sit in your house? Now we know the Gemara, we have tables and chairs. I mean, there was something at tables and chairs, but maybe chairs, maybe not, maybe didn't, everybody wasn't, now that you have some guests over today, we need an extra chair. We need some more chairs. Maybe it wasn't, I mean, he said it was common that they would sit on the ground. And maybe that's why in the Navi, maybe I wonder in the Navi by Elisha and Isha Shunamit, they got him a chair and a table. Maybe it wasn't, everybody didn't have the chair and the table. I'm saying? Maybe it was something unique. And they would put garments on the floor to lean on. Is that what happened with the Persian rugs? I wonder. I'm wondering if that, I don't know the history of the Persian rugs, by the way.
Oh, so when you're sitting on the floor, it's something to lean on.
Something to lean on, gives you a little, makes it comfortable. So therefore you would have thought that maybe it's not mukseh, these materials. So therefore, Kamash Malan, therefore the Braita tells us that even so, because it's not, even though it does have use as a nice cushion, but it's not standing for that purpose. You don't plan on using this as a cushion. When you have your cotton, when you have your shearings of wool, you plan on using it to make a garment out of it, and therefore you're separated from. You're not thinking of using it for it's not. It's separated. It's separated from you. It's not that you're going to be using it for this type of purpose. It's standing for what purpose? Just like a gun. The gun is standing to shoot, right? So you're not going. So this is standing for. You're separated from handling a gun on Shabbat. Why? Because a gun is standing to shoot. So even if you might have another purpose that the gun might be used for, it could be to hold down my papers, so I shouldn't it shouldn't fly away. But that's not what it's used for. It's not used to hold the papers down that it shouldn't fly away. It's used for a gun. Therefore, I'm separated from the gun. So I'm separated from this item. This is or like I said, let's use the case of the knife of the slaughterer, the shochet. The knife of the slaughterer can't, I want to cut my apple, but it's not standing for that. Because I'm not going to use it to cut my apple. I'm not going to use this. This is not the fact that it has the ability to be used in such a fashion, but that's not what it's standing for. And therefore, I am separated from it when Shabbat comes. So therefore, so too over here, I'm separated from these shearings of wool and the kan. Now, Rav Chizda shara la dure udra lebesadya b'shabbata. Rav, you see, you have the cotton. You call it cotton down or whatever that fell out of a pillow on Shabbat. Can you put it back into the pillow? What's the issue? We're getting into a fascinating subject called makeh patish. Makeh patish, I think we spoke about it earlier, is called the final blow. One of the 39 malachot on Shabbat is you're not allowed to make a utensil. And the thing that makes the utensil, when you make something on Shabbat, that whatever, when it's completed, have a good day. The last act that you did that completes the utensil, meaning while you're building the utensil, let's say you didn't violate this prohibition of final blow because you didn't complete it. It could be there's a discussion about building. Building is building. Do you violate the prohibition of building in a movable item or only in a non-movable item? But let's not get into that discussion now. We'll have to see more about that. But there's a different issue on a movable item called making a movable item, making a item, finishing something, creating a utensil on Shabbat. It's forbidden to create something, to finish something, to make it something that's not usable, not a utensil, into a utensil. So you have the violation, so for the final blow, you see also, some want to say also, if even building on Shabbat, let's say you build a building. So let's say every brick might be the violation of building. That's an act of building, every brick. But the last brick, now that the completing the act, that's another prohibition of you finished it. You finished the building. You made the building. You completed it. So here, we're going to see from the Gemara something fascinating. How do you make a pillow? To make a pillow usable, making something into a pillow. When you have a sheet, and you have a casing, when you fill up the casing with the cotton, now you made a pillow. So what's a fascinating thing is that would be a prohibition. That would be a prohibition. And some say that that's a prohibition here of makeh b'patish. You made when you put the cotton, when you filled the pillow, and now you made something which was not a utensil, was not a pillow. You made a pillow. That's a violation of Shabbat. How do you like that? Then people don't look at, they also, let's say, if you take a pair of shoes and you put the shoelaces in, if a person would put new shoelaces on Shabbat, see if the shoelaces fell out, then it was already made before Shabbat, but putting in new shoelaces into the shoe, I think they also say that even putting into new shoelaces into old shoes might also be a problem. But now you're making it usable. Shoes without shoelaces, now, let's just say it's considered usable. But let's say we're looking at shoes without shoelaces, that's not complete. The shoelace is actually like the final blow that makes the item complete. Or let's say tissues on Shabbat. If the tissues are not cut, so now you cut the tissues, you made it into a usable item, or you made that each tissue that you cut when it wasn't cut before. Maybe besides, there's a different issue on cutting. Besides the other issue, but this other issue of making it into now I made this tissue into complete. I completed the item. These are some of the issues on Shabbat. People buy pre-cut tissues before Shabbat. Right? One of the things that people use is pre-cut. They don't use toilet paper on Shabbat because there's different issues with the toilet paper. This might be also one of the issues. Then you're making, each time you're cutting it, you're making it into a specific usable item. There are other issues also. But getting back to, that's why the tissue business is a good business for the Jewish community, because everyone's buying pre-cut tissues before Shabbat. Now, So we're going to see the Gemara is going to challenge. It's going to challenge this rabbi, because here we have on record the Rav Chizda Sharia lahaduri udra lebesadim shabbata. He permitted to putting back the cotton that fell out from the pillow on Shabbat. And the Gemara is going to challenge this. See, this cotton was designated for pillow purposes. It's not. That's what it's used for, and therefore that's the cotton is not mukseh. This cotton is not mukseh. We're talking it's cotton mukseh, raw cotton, right? You can make felt out of it. But here you made this cotton, you're using it as pillow casing. That's so it's not mukseh. This cotton is not mukseh. It fell out. No problem moving the cotton. But the issue here is, are you how was he allowed to see? Rashi here says the issue is making utensil, and the Rambam says the issue is maybe you might come to stitch the pillow. That seems to be the concern. Are you going to come to if you put it back in, and maybe you would stitch it in?
Because if you put it back in, it
might fall out again.
Use it, it's all going to fly out,
right? Right. So maybe the concern is are you going to come to stitch it, right? And if you can put it back in. So are you allowed to put it back in on Shabbat? You might come to stitch it. So that's how the Rambam seems to be the concern is. But Rashi's learning the concern is making a utensil. Meaning from the Rambam, it would sound like it would be a rabbinic concern putting back it wouldn't be the issue of, wouldn't be a biblical issue, but Rashi's learning that it might be a biblical issue. That's what it would seem like. But he allowed, Rav Chizda said you could put it back. Rav Chanan bar Chizda, Rav Chizda, Rav Chanan, the son of Rav Chizda, asked Rav Chizda, the laundromat, they would tie the neck of the garment and to return it tied after the washing. And they did this, that the owner of the beged should know. And it's fascinating. Rabbeinu Parachi says, the laundry guy, when you give a garment to the laundry man to wash, maybe I don't want anybody to wear my garment while you have it. And to ensure that, they would tie the garment by the neck. Different, you can't if you tie it by the neck, you can't put it in, right? The neck is like a polo shirt. If you tie the, it seems like the button shirts are more recent invention. I don't know how old this button, someone said, but the idea of, so it commonly was a polo type of thing. If you tie the neck, nobody could use it. You can't put it on if you tie the neck. So, good morning. So he allowed the opening up, got it back from the laundryman, and he left it tied. You got it back tied, and he allowed you to untie it on Shabbat. Now, the reason why he let you untie it, good morning, because it was made to untie. It's not a permanent knot. You're not allowed to make a permanent knot on Shabbat. You're not allowed to make, and untie is permanent knot on Shabbat. But this was made to tie and untie. But of a low potchim, he allowed you to untie it, but he didn't allow you to go ahead and make the hole in the garment, to make that hole to put your head through, to cut a hole in the garment originally, to make it identify that, because now you're completing the garment, right? Now you're making the garment useful. You can put it over your head. Says you can't he didn't allow you to place the cotton into the pillow or into you want to make a blanket or you want to make a pillow, or he didn't allow you, into a mattress or into the pillow. And Yom Tov, you couldn't do that even on Yom Tov, to put the cotton in the pillow and the blanket. And certainly you can't do that with Shabbat. You can't do it on Yom Tov, you can't do it on Shabbat. Shabbat is more stricter than Yom Tov in certain areas, as you know, like food, like cooking. You can cook on Yom Tov, you can't cook on Shabbat. But many halachos, most Yom Tov that apply for Shabbat apply to Yom Tov. It didn't allow you to. He could not allow. He didn't allow you to make the pillow, put the pillow together, and put the cotton into the pillow casing or into the, to the mattress. So to make it on Shabbat, on Yom Tov. So how do you? But how did he allow? How did Rav Chisda go in and put the cotton back? So the Gemara says, look, Hashem, the bright is talking about new pillowcasing, new mattresses. So that if you go ahead and you want to make a new pillow, now you're making it. You're making the item. You're creating. That's the final blow, and that will be prohibited on Shabbat. You made it. But if it's already made, now you're just putting back. That's not called you made it. Putting it back is not making it. It's already made. So therefore you're allowed to put back the cotton that fell out and put it back in. The shoelace that fell out to put it back in. But to put the new shoelaces in for the first time, or perhaps even the new shoelaces in when it's totally not there anymore, that would be a problem. We're just going to end with just every word of Torah is a mitzvah. So you're going to get many mitzvot. That on Shabbat, you're not allowed to make a utensil on Shabbat. Making a utensil, makeh b'patish. You made something, you completed something. And we said if you make a pillow on Shabbat, how do you make a pillow on Shabbat? If you take the pillowcase, the pillow thing, or the inside, not the pillowcase, the thing that you put the cotton into, that's going to serve as the cushion. Let's say you buy from Amazon. You make your own pillow. You buy or you go in and you take the inside, the cotton, whatever materials, and you put it into whatever they gave you, and then that you put into a pillowcase. You can't do that on Shabbat. Why can't I do that on Shabbat? I'm making a pillow on Shabbat. Because by making the cushion, by putting in the cotton and filling in that thing, and now you have a pillow. That will be a problem of making a pillow on Shabbat. If some of the cotton fell out on Shabbat, to put it back in, because you already made it. It was already made. It just fell out. You put it back in. But to go ahead and make it on Shabbat, make something on Shabbat, you said you can't take shoelaces. You bought a pair of shoes, right? For Shabbat, for Yom Tov, you just bought a new pair of shoes. But the shoelaces were not inside. Now by putting in the shoelaces, you're completing it. You're making it usable. You would never think that that's a malacha on Shabbat. That's a problem on Shabbat. You made it. You made it usable. Okay, we're going upstairs to daven. Let's have a beautiful davening. Thank you for joining. We're here every day, generally 6:45 to 7:25. Because of today, the holiday, we're an hour later. Gemara Shabbat, 6:45 to 7:25, Monday through Friday. Then we pray at the 7:30 minyan. You're cordially invited. Praying upstairs, yes. 7:30 and 8:30. You're also invited, by the way. We'll take you too. What's your name again? Remind me. Stanley Sher. You are a very. Oh, very nice. It's beautiful. You're working these days? Right. Nice to meet you formally. Thank you for listening to the Mishnah.
Thank you for taking care of it.
How are you enjoying the Mishnah?
I am. I'm getting not consistent enough. I should be more consistent, but I love when I'm on. Very nice.
You live in the neighborhood?
I do, yes. 59th and 3rd.
Okay, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling me. Now you're giving me a chizuk. I got to do more. Have a great day.